Hi there. It's been a minute. To you guys that have still been following the channel, thank you for your support. I really appreciate it, and I'm sorry for the really long hiatus. Um, I've ventured into some different venues since my move in January, and right now I have an Instagram page I've been focusing most of my time on. So I kind of took this sabbatical from my YouTube page, which I was so adamant about the last year, basically. Um, and it's so strange because I feel like I keep seeing these comments and these views on the Cusp videos in particular. And maybe I feel like there's still this need out there for guidance and clarity around the people that have Cusp signs or know people that have Cusp signs in their charts. And so I kind of wanted to do my part in completing that initial goal of doing one video for every cusp in the zodiac. And I just thought it was like such weird slash perfect timing that the cusp we're in right now, Scorpio-Sagittarius, is would be the next one that I do in the video series. So that means that this time last year was kind of when I stopped doing those videos. And I just think it would be interesting to at least do this one to see how I feel and if I feel like it's still relevant and that you guys could benefit from me doing a tarot reading to get further insight into the signs and how they kind of combine. So, first and foremost, Scorpio representing endings and death and the things that really break us down to our core, the things that make us feel like without, like we're scorpions in a desert. Like there's not a lot to live for. We're just solely concerned with our survival, and every day is a struggle. It's very similar to Aries, since they saying that they change. They inhabit the same planet of Mars. Um, One's a fire sign, one's a water sign. So they do have different elements that kind of keep them at different polarities, but there is some similarity in their way of combating outside forces, and just that they have a very competitive nature. Um, both of the signs, and they're both sexual signs. They're both linked to, you know, both sides of sexuality. Scorpio in particular represents the genitals. So, in the Pluto and Scorpio generation, which was kind of like almost millennials, but the generation before that, which is my generation, we were all Pluto and Scorpio. So that really represented a very sexual time. And it's when you started to see kind of like, I think porn, like grow to its kind of like exponential rate, or like to where it's come today. I feel like that foundation was really happening during that time, and it was growing really big. And now it's really transformed, and it's a very big media presence, I guess, for lack of a better word. But yeah, that was a very intense time. If you just think about the 90s when those people were being born in Pluto and Scorpio generation, we were seeing a very like angsty, emo kind of music genre blossoming. The goth scene had really taken off. And it was just overall a more like sexual, I feel like, decade, as opposed to the 80s coming before it, which was very like Virgoan, or even Libran to a degree. So what I see most with that is like this strange need to survive and just be on top. And that's very Scorpio, but it also blends really well into the Sag season that comes right after it. So Sagittarius is victorious, it represents a journey. It's very existential, so it's very big. Where I feel like Scorpio is kind of internal, like a water sign. It's very, very intimate. Hey, Sagittarius is more concerned with how it involves the world or the globe. It's on a bigger scale. So it comes like in the later season of the signs. So it's actually considered by some people to be a collective sign. They say that Sagittarius starts the first of the collective signs. So we move from a more personal journey and from Aries to Scorpio, Scorpio being the death maybe of the individual almost because it's a transformative time. And Sagittarius begins a new life, but it's one of a collective mind. It's one of um, a bigger voice. So it's not just yourself. You've transcended your own persona or image and you're speaking on a bigger level. Think of a university professor, a comedian, people that really encapsulate like these things that are happening to us on a daily basis, but they're able to kind of put it out to the masses. A college um, lecture hall could be up to like 300, 400 people. A comedian could easily reach thousands of people in an audience, for a Netflix special or something like that. And so it's really putting out things that they're seeing in a very insightful but truth based way that's entertaining. So it's a lot of fire, it's a lot of honesty, it's a lot of entertainment, humor. So, but it's very truth based. And so when we look at Scorpio into Sag, that transition is very about like a transformative time from death into life. And so it's kind of that last cycle of that, because Pisces is the end. It's a last cycle of transformation in the zodiac, if you look at it that way. So it's pretty important, actually. And you will find that the people that have Scorpio Sag cusps are very revolutionary. It's deemed the cusp of revolution for a reason, is because they take the intensity of Scorpio and it's blended with the kind of magnification that a Sagittarius can carry with them. They reach people on a bigger level. And blended with the determination of the Scorpio, like the limit does not exist. That's kind of how I feel. Like it could just keep going and going. But yeah, so let's get into it. Let's pull some cards and let's see kind of what we can find out like further through the tarot being a vehicle. I personally know at least one person on this cusp, and they are it's a very, very strange blend. You kind of take this manic like intensity that the Scorpio can have and you mix it with like this effervescence of like life and enthusiasm. And so it makes somebody a very fierce contender, but somebody that ultimately is on like a quest for the truth. They are just very, very quick. Yeah, okay. So Three of Cups. That's the first card out. So we have a water card here, not surprising. And Three of Cups is really about the group dynamic. It's about the unifying kind of communal aspect of maybe the more Sagittarian part of this sign, because Scorpio is very internal, it's the self. And Sagittarius is much more so the group. And so here we're kind of celebrating together. We're indulging. It's very natural to see indulgence with Sagittarius. It's kind of excess So it's the planet of excess. It's, Sagittarius represents big, and that can manifest as a literal, bigger person, whether it's due to eating habits or just kind of genetics. Bigger boned people, whether it's taller, bigger around the waist, big in some kind of aspect. And Scorpio, being the Mars planet, can kind of intensify that as well, just like an Aries would. So here we see excess, we see kind of like reaping what we've sowed. So if this is like right after harvest season, we have had a productive season and we have accomplished what we set out to do, which is bringing about fruitful, um, plants or vegetables, whatever it was. They're ripe for the picking. And now we're kind of just like taking that moment to enjoy our accomplishment. And that is very much what this cusp is about. It's like pushing through Scorpio season is like surviving, like what do they call your dark night of the soul? It's like that journey that just really, really pushes you to your threshold. And Sagittarius is like the new dawn that kind of like comes and is that warm embrace of like you've done it, you've made it. And that's kind of what this card feels like. um, and it's also, a very communal card. So, you're somebody that surrounds yourself with people, with friends in particular, and you love to have a good time. You kind of seek out experiences where you can celebrate with others. Yeah, and just kind of feel the reward. So you really, you enjoy the reward aspect of what you work towards. Um, it could lead into overindulgence. Obviously, with this card, we always caution with like drinking habits and maybe partying too often. So maybe for some of you, you do identify with that. Um, but overall, it's just celebratory. So it's a big part of who you guys are. And if you're watching this to understand more of a Scorpio Sag combo, that's kind of how they approach life, is in a manner of being thankful. Um, there was a lady that came into my store, and I feel like she was a Scorpio, and she just had like this like really really positive demeanor or aura to her, and I'm like, wow, how do you just walk around day to day with that? And she's like, you know what, I think it's because I've experienced so much tragedy firsthand in my life, and that I've just decided, I just have to be grateful. I can't take anything for granted. It just makes you appreciate stuff, I guess, when you are kind of dealt so many bad hands. To some degree, you just have to change your approach, your mentality. It does something to you. And being somebody that really hasn't experienced that, I guess I can see it to some degree, but I don't fully understand it. But her explaining it, I really did in the moment. And so maybe that's something that you guys also identify with, is that there has been a lot of tragedy in your life, so a lot of big setbacks, some that most people don't see in their lifetime, whether it's death, illness, mistakes, accidents. Those are all things kind of encompassing both of those signs. And so kudos to you for really just kind of chugging along and making the best of it, regardless of your circumstances. Because I can't imagine how challenging that can be, if that's kind of those are the things that you guys are experiencing or have been kind of burdened with in your life. Next card. Okay, yeah, maybe we do feel that. So Scorpio Sag, Nine of Swords. So mentality isn't really becoming of you. We have a lot of not terrorizing, but difficult thoughts, the ones that kind of pierce you, in ways, literally in this card. I mean, there's at least there's two swords going through the body, one kind of at the top of the head. So the thoughts that you guys have are really debilitating. So you're really not easy on yourselves at all. Whether it kind of comes across that you guys have this fluid kind of movement to you, things look easy maybe to the outside people, and that everything is just a celebration like the first card. Internally, there's a real struggle here. There's this need to be the best. Nine of swords, that's almost all of the swords. So you guys have had so many victories along the way, but there's something still missing internally, and it's only something that you guys can identify with, and it literally can keep you up at night. When you feel like you just can't rest, because maybe you're your own worst enemy, you're your own worst critic, you're the harshest on yourself, and yeah, that's kind of what it feels like. Some things that really cut you, and maybe you don't really let other people see that side of you. It's something that you keep very private. But I don't necessarily think that that is the best way to handle it, especially if you have such a solid group like you do in the first picture. It would really behoove you to, you know, put more out there, wear the truth on your sleeve a little more. That's the saying. So, Nine of Swords can be very hard to get through. Um, Here we go, another sword. So Four of Swords. So you guys really struggle with rest. That's kind of the message from the two of these cards. They're both kind of taking places in states of rest. One is in the bedroom, and one is in the church or the sanctuary. We do see with Sag, the fourth house is represented by Pisces. So this thing that can make you upset, moon sign can kind of bring out the things that irritate you or that, bring you literal emotion would be Pisces, which represents sleep. So you guys really have a hard time of turning things off. There's, an essence here that you just kind of want to be victorious again and again. You don't want to stop. You don't want to rest. And knowing the one Scorpio-Sag combo that I do, I can definitely see that. She had maybe 4 to 5 hours of sleep, which is way below what's recommended for an average person. And yeah, there was this essence of just not being able to stop or quit. There's like this need to just keep going. Like you guys are this energizer bunny, and you just kind of have to keep like taking every challenge, or maybe even seeking out challenges. Wow, another sword. So a lot of air energy for this combo. So maybe some of you guys do have air placements. Ace of Swords. Victory. I mean, you're definitely an opponent or a challenger that it's very hard to be victorious against you. Like you live for the challenge. It seems like. I mean, even when you're alone and you don't need to, you're living for the challenge. So. Also this Four of Swords I should talk about, maybe a lot of you guys are spiritual, or you do kind of have this state of mind that is connected to something bigger. Not necessarily like you go to church, but you have this kind of spiritual, esoteric way of looking at the world. And making it intimate to yourself and how it applies to you. You see the bigger picture. So that's kind of what that card implies. But also, it's just finding that moment to rest, finding that guru moment to like zen out, to do some yoga, to do something like that. That came up for you guys. So it's something that you're going to constantly need if you don't already know that about yourselves, that you need those times where you can just turn things off and just kind of like find your inner sanctuary, peace, whatever that may look like to you. Because it looks like this Ace of Swords really comes out strong for you guys. So these challenge is these victories just, come left and right. Like I said, you guys, all you do is win. But that doesn't mean that it's not tiring, it's not exhausting, and um, it doesn't always have a positive effect on you. It just means that, you work hard, you're just very attracted to success, it seems like. Not necessarily in a material form, but in a sense of you've won, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? It doesn't always present itself materially, like, you're making more money, or you have that thing that you always wanted, but you do come out on top time and time again. And you're always looking at new ways to discover things or explore things. So you have this kind of idealistic tendency to have, glass is half full kind of perspective, that you're like, okay, there's something that I can learn here. And that's a great perspective to have, because it always kind of helps you make things lighter. And you're not more of the Scorpio tendency to be a little more, not pessimistic, but nihilistic, sarcastic, that alludes to something a little more pessimistic. You know what I mean? Because the Sagittarius is very optimistic, and you mix it with Scorpio, which usually isn't. So I'm sure some of you fall on either side of that. It would be, you know what I mean? But I think to some degree you all see opportunity. It's just how do other people view that on you? I think definitely with Scorpio, there's a sense of being misunderstood. People see this alluring, dramatic, intense energy it's embodied in you, and they kind of judge that on the first go. And so maybe you guys do kind of have that factor where people don't take you seriously, or they write you off really quick. Certainly with Sagittarius, you can be written off as somebody aloof or kind of ditzy, almost like an Elle Woods type, where you're just kind of like super enthusiastic, but Britney Spears, where people don't really think that there's more under the surface necessarily, but I certainly don't think that that's the case, because I think Sagittarius is one of the signs that is most linked to intelligence. And obviously, you see one of the biggest professions for a Sagittarius is a professor themselves. So it's like you're teaching on a big level. Obviously, there's a lot going on up there. Page of Wands in reverse. So this is the first kind of like trepidatious card I see. I mean, the Nine of Swords is, but it's also something I think we all struggle with. Page of Wands in reverse, also the first reversal card, if you guys notice, means that you're kind of a wanderer. I think especially with Sagittarius, they do feel lost to a degree, and they're also very hard to pin down. Like, I've been friends with a few Sagittarius over the years, and they're the ones that they're hard to get on a consistent basis. You know what I mean? They are not the friend that's going to show up with you every week to that event, or is going to go out every week with you. They're not that person. They're the one that you're going to see maybe once a month, every few months. You're going to be lucky to kind of like have that time with them. But there's something about them that's always kind of like drifting off, or like they're just hard to kind of grab. It's very similar to like the Piscean quality. So there is this kind of lost sensibility. Like maybe they don't even know what they're looking for, and half the time it just kind of falls in their lap, or the victory is very unexpected, but they wear it well. I feel like that it resonates pretty well. But yeah, Page of Wands means you don't really know what you're looking for, and that can be very irksome when you tie into the Scorpio factor, because Scorpio is very determined. It's very ambitious. Once it sets its eyes on a target or something, It's going to do what it takes, and maybe to a degree that other people find uncomfortable, unethical. But Scorpio, if we do give it some consideration, is a sign of survival. So they feel like they're stripped to their bones, that there's nothing left, that they have to do what they have to do to survive. And so I think that's some sort of justification for kind of like the extremities that they take. Um, and maybe for some of the unethical measures that they take to get what they want, because they feel like it's their only outlet, like it's the only thing that's going to give them comfort or stability. Because water signs just don't carry that with them. They're not routine oriented, they're not structured, they're just almost like chaotic. When you look at water signs, is like their purpose and their manifestation in this world is kind of chaos. It's more destructive than it is productive. It's falling opposite of earth signs, which represent growth and refinement and perfection. Water signs, in particular Scorpio, is the odd one out that kind of shakes up the bag, that makes people uncomfortable, that pushes people to their limits, and but also finds out what they're worth when they are pushed. So it's a necessary evil to some degree. That doesn't mean that they're easy to work with or easy to be around. Some people will find them easier to be around, obviously, especially if they're water signs. They can maybe understand that elemental configuration more. Um, but yeah, so a very interesting blend here. We see a lot of worry, a lot of like, what is my purpose? Because when we move into that collective kind of mindset, like I said with Sag, we're thinking now on the group level, on the big picture level. It's now what is our purpose? Now we've gotten away from ourselves. What can I do that's going to further humanity? What is my role here? Some really big existential questions. And so there is this sense of feeling lost, feeling drifting away. Sagittarius represents travel. So most of you probably have had, quite a few addresses over the years, and maybe some of you even live on the road. Um, because that's something that I've personally have noticed over the years, and that they're looking for the next thing. And so there's a tendency here to maybe rush, for sure, rush when we look at Sagittarius. Scorpio can take its time, but I think it opts not to because it feels so much pressure. Again, to find the comfort, to find the stability. So we have here somebody that is very quick to action. Maybe not always the most decisive or uh, like not the nicest kind of action or consideration, but always finds themselves getting done what they need to. That I definitely feel like there's a success factor here to these cards. Um, do they feel like, in the grand scheme of things, that they're on the right path? I don't know about that, because of the last card. So let's see, maybe we can get one final card to kind of summarize this. I do want to keep this right around 30 minutes. And okay, the card we get, King of Swords. Wow, 4 swords. Very unexpected suit to get with a water and a fire sign, which would be represented by cups and wands, which I do see on either side of the sword, so that's interesting. But in between, there's a lot of insight, a lot of innovation, a lot of ideas, but it's also, when we look at the mental aspect of tarot cards, they can be very debilitating, because I feel like the mind is the first to go when it comes to overthinking or undermining our purpose. The mind can kind of be the self sabotage factor, I think in the overall makeup of the elements. Um, yeah, but King of Swords here, it means kind of like this overarching mastery of the mind. So this is how you guys come across. It's not necessarily how you see yourselves or how you feel like you are internally, but this is more so the embodiment of the Scorpio Sagittarius cusp. King of Swords, you're somebody that people come to for advice, for advice on success. How do I achieve the goals that I'm setting out to do? You guys are really good at sharing that, at being an example of that. Um, and there is this essence of taking the high road. Like I was talking about earlier, there's like an optimistic tendency to look at things in a perspective that is more beneficial as opposed to pessimistic, is very important in achieving success. Is to almost like psyching out yourself by thinking positively. You kind of like change the scope around you. And so that's kind of what it is. It's like mastery of the mind. It's thinking outside of the box, which I think those are both two signs that can do that, Scorpio and Sagittarius. Their innovation. Um, yeah, it's things on a big level. I mean, he looks very big in respect to his landscape. He looks like enlarged. The bird signaling flight means like ideas are taking off. The future is being written. And yeah, it's a very calm card. So it's like you are somebody that comes across as very centered, as in control, even though you're a Sag, because Sag is usually very wiry, very a lot of energy, but the Scorpio kind of refines it and makes it a more um, approachable or more confident, stable energy. And so, yeah, a very wise individual with a lot of knowledge to share. Very professor. Um, yeah, I think it's a really interesting mix of cards here. Not some that I would have expected, honestly, but it's really cool. And I really hope you guys enjoyed this. I know it's been a minute since I've done this, but I just feel like there's still this need for these cusp videos out there because I think they're one of the aspects of astrology that is just so kind of misunderstood or just not developed enough for people to really identify with. So I hope that this does benefit some people that are watching, and let me know if you guys want me to continue on further. Please check out my Instagram. It's stars underscore on underscore stars. So stars on stars. And it's this great thing that I've started that combines both astrology and film, my two favorite things in the world. So I develop like films where I look at the actual actors' natal charts and how those lessons play out in their characters because there's a lot of similarities and it's a lot of fun. So check on that and DM me or send me a message if you want to get a personal reading. I have rates available and times as well. So it's perfect time right before the new year, the new decade. Great holiday gift. So just reach out to me if you want any info on that. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great Sag season. It's time for beginnings. It's a time to go really seize the moment. Carpe diem, you guys. Don't let the holiday madness get you down, and just ride it and enjoy the festivities and just go for it. Don't hold yourself back.